everybody, and welcome to the Hunted Podcast. This is episode number 3. We're going to just kind of jump into things here. We got a guest that we are excited to talk to, kind of a little local legend that we have. But before we get on to that, we want to go through and tell you the sponsors that we got, because without them, much of this couldn't be done. If you listen to our other podcast, you know that me and Levi are shooting wreck broadheads. I'm shooting the FX4s, and Levi's shooting the XP. He's blowing holes in deer, and I'm still not. And season's about over, so I'm just going to have to wait till next year. And then we got Wild Oak Whitetail Buck Lures. Small little company, literally in his backyard. Corey, get a hold of them. Check him out on Facebook and all that good stuff. He'll get you all hooked up. ECW hunting calls. He goes through and makes goose calls, buck calls, all that good stuff and everything. He also, I think he tinkers around in little stuff, just woodworking material in general. And then a good buddy of mine, Morath Welding. He is a heck of a welder, busier than all can be. Poor guy's out in the shitty weather probably today, going out and doing welding in this weather. But hey, he's got to go where the money is. And then Nature Made Jewelry. So then we'll let Levi real quick tell you about that.
That's kind of my wife's adventure. We take the antlers that we find, the shed antlers, and make them into necklaces, bracelets, rings, about anything you can imagine. Right. We've been kind of working on. So got some cool things coming up for 2023.
So check them out on Facebook too. They're great Christmas gifts too. When you kind of sort of get yourself behind the 8-ball and just get a hold of your buddy and say, hey, can you make me one of those real quick? Got on me real quick. Quick and easy. So something else we're going to try something here. I shouldn't say we're going to try that. We're going to do is we're not going to take credit that we came up with this idea. We definitely took it from somewhere else, but we're going to give thanks to first responders, be it EMTs, paramedics, whatever you want to call them, police officers, firefighters, corrections, anything like that. These people out here that are making sure that we're safe and that are keeping us safe, especially now in the times things are getting really crazy and really out of hand. And the same thing with the military. So if you guys are hearing this and you want, go ahead and email us, and we will be more than happy to go through and give thanks to whomever you want us to go through and say thank you to. They can be somebody that has sadly passed away too soon. It can be a family member that you didn't even know that did anything like that, or it can be, your husband, your wife, or niece, nephew, cousin, whoever. We'll be more than happy to go through and say that. So with that being said, excuse me, I want to go through for this one and give thanks to my wife's grandfather who passed away. His name was Don Miller. He was in World War II. The man, I guess, would say, just like if you know any other WW2 people, the man's seen some shit and he never said anything about it. But I know that he impacted my life greatly, and a lot of what I have going on now, my freedoms and everything else, and let alone personally, would not be here without him. So I just like to give a quick few little seconds, moments of silence for him for passing away. All right, wonderful. So, like I was saying, this is episode number 3, and we got Aaron. Is it Linhart? Is that how you say it?
Yep, Linhart.
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 Got Aaron Linhart on here. He kind of is going to fall into our little thing. We're still kind of playing with the name, but right now we're just going to call him a local legend with his big buck that he went through and smashed during muzzleload season. And Levi's been talking with Aaron on the phone through messages and all this good stuff, so I'm going to turn it over to him and get jumped right in.
I think we're just going to have you kind of introduce yourself, Aaron. If your wife's with you, introduce her, and kind of tell us, a little bit about yourselves. I know you and I have talked back and forth a little bit, and you've told me some of the history on the big bucks you've killed, so I think it'd be good for everybody to hear that. I mean, it's pretty incredible what you guys have done.
Well, appreciate it. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on. Name's Aaron Linhart. My wife, she's here with me, but I kind of have a phone right now. But her name's Sarah. She's a local teacher. We run a bunch of cows here in southern Iowa, and we're very blessed to be able to be outside. kind of work in the environment we're in. I like to tell Dad that when we're out fixing fence and stuff in the spring, that's just paid shed hunting, and I mean we get a bunch of that kind of stuff to go. So we have a lot of fun with it. We've killed some good deer as of the last couple of years. After I graduated high school, I got a lot more serious about hunting mature deer specifically. I always deer hunted, but Dad was kind of more of the mindset of we want to kill good bucks, but we weren't trying to kill the biggest of the big. I mean, if the biggest deer came out, we were going to kill him, but we've kind of taken that to a whole new level now as of the last 6 or 7 years. So we've kind of all bought into a management plan, and we've had a lot of fun with it. So.
And you guys are in the perfect area to do it. I mean, nothing beats Southern Iowa. I'm sorry, hands down.
Right.
Southern Iowa's got it.
Well, that's very true. We're in the best area that you could be. I mean, we're just east of 35, Zone 4, right in the good stuff. I mean, we are truly blessed for what we like to do. We're in the best neighborhood in the country. We've got awesome neighbors, but everyone seems to kind of be on the same management plan, and the neighbors kind of work together to make sure we all get to do what we like to do, and we've been very blessed the last few years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm sure a big help of that too is your neighbors are all on board with you.
Right.
Well, yeah, we don't run any majorly big chunks. I think our biggest chunk's like 300 acres. But so we have a pile of neighbors. Most of our farms don't touch. They're all apart. We've got a pile of neighbors, and we're lucky to have a lot of them that try and work with us, that are kind of on the same mindset and same wavelength that we are.
Oh,
they kind of allow for us to be able to pass those deer that need another year. Maybe give a buck another year that got hurt or he broke a tine or something. They kind of allow us to be able to do that on a lot of our farms.
Oh, that's got to be great, because I know where I'm at. I've talked with Levi, and it's their property and stuff, and he's came in and did kind of his thing and tore some trees down and did this and tore up bedding and everything like that, which I understand it's their property and everything, but to have a neighbor that is like on board with you, that would just be that would almost be a dream come true. So do you want to just jump right in, have him tell us a story? You got some questions you want to ask him? Should we ask him some basic questions or just right in the meat and taters?
Let's hear the story, man.
All right,
I can't wait to hear it.
Me neither. So, yeah, Aaron, if you would, just kind of set the mood, give us, which way the wind was blowing, the direction, the beautiful temperature, and all this good stuff. The show is yours now, my man.
Well, I mean, if you were going to be hunting in almost January, you couldn't have asked for worse conditions to be hunting a good mature deer in almost January. I mean, it was we had been being told about this deer, and I had a couple neighbors that asked me if I'd seen him, and to be honest, I didn't know the deer existed other than finding a shed from a couple of years ago when he was a 3 or 4 year old. I mean, it was a 62, 63 inch 5-point. It was a nice shed, but not anything that you're like, wow, it was out in the middle of a cattle pasture. I actually found it feeding cows. It just wasn't anything that we really thought of. And I started having a bunch of neighbors kind of pressing and asking if we were seeing him or if we were hunting him, trying to figure out where the deer was. So we kind of started to try and see if we couldn't locate the deer, to be honest. And we were out driving a big block one night, and he ran in front of me. It was maybe an hour before daylight or into shooting light. He ran in front of me, and I thought, oh man, that's got to be the deer everyone's talking about. I was like, that was a stud. And so he was kind of in our head then. We knew where he was at. He was kind of bedding in an area where we kind of play pretty hard, and we knew we were in his area. And he just kind of, we bounced around a couple different farms trying to exactly locate him. And once we got him located, I mean, we honed in there that first night that we actually set for him. I moved in, and he was at about 150 yards, and I went to try, and I cocked the muzzleloader, shot him, and when the muzzleloader went off, I mean, I'm shooting 150 grains of powder. I mean, that thing kicks when it hits, and it just kind of went woof, and I mean, it didn't feel right. I knew right away that something hadn't locked in and shot right. And it just, I knew I had missed as soon as I pulled the trigger. And I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if I got some moisture in the barrel or what, but that shot just did not feel right. And so by the time I got reloaded, he was out to about 250 yards. And I mean, he didn't even know that there was hardly a gunshot. It hadn't scared him. He just he jumped, ran probably 40 yards, and stopped. I don't think the bullet made it over 100 yards, to be honest, and he was out there at 150.
Right.
And he kind of did that jump and stop, and as soon as he did it, I started reloading, and he'd gotten out to probably 250 or so. And as soon as he got out there, I knew he was too far, so we kind of figured we'd jump back in the next day and see if we couldn't catch him on that same pattern, because we were catching him on that food to bed. I mean, he was close every single day. Next day we got in, and we had reshot the muzzleloader, made sure it was on, of course, and trying to figure out what had gone on. I cleaned the muzzleloader. The next day we went in, and he came from the west up over the hill and came right at us, came into like 40 yards, and I was like, this is going to be perfect. Cocked the muzzleloader. I mean, he's standing at 40 yards presenting, and I pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off. And he heard the click, kind of scampered away, and my wife was sitting next to me, and I was like, how many shots are we going to get at this deer? I was like, there's no way this deer is going to do it again. And so the next night we slipped back in, and we had him he was the first deer in the field. Came out and was standing in a bean field across the road on the neighbors who had been hunting for this deer every single night. And for some reason that night he hadn't sat, and he'd have killed him at 10 yards the night before.
Oh, wow.
If he had made it to him. And he sat there and he fed out in that field for over an hour. Sarah filmed him, and we sat there and watched him, and it ended up getting dark that night. We moved out. We didn't spook him. We didn't bust him. Had the perfect wind. And the whole time we were hunting, I mean, we were hunting in 45 to 55 degree weather. I mean, terrible weather for the end of December in southern Iowa. And so there, that fourth night, we slipped in, and it was hot. It was windy, and we were seeing 20 to 40 deer a night easily. The fourth night we slipped in, sat in, and we did not see a deer until after legal shooting light. We had 4 does run up on us, almost ran over the top of us, and just never presented a shot, nothing. So we backed out that day, and we kind of wondered what had gone on, because, I mean, we were consistently seeing him. And so that last night we kind of jumped in the stand. It was, I want to say it was like 53 degrees with a light southeast wind, which everyone knows southeast wind's just terrible for big deer.
Straight trash.
I mean, you might as well stay home. But, I mean, he had done it 3 nights in a row on basically the same conditions, and we just kind of jumped in on a hope. We got in, and we'd sat there for probably an hour and a half. It was right at 5 o'clock, and I looked up, and a couple does were popping up over the hill. I told Sarah, I was like, there's a couple does right up there, and they worked around the top side of the ridge, out at about 100 yards. And there was another good buck that came out with those does, probably a 150-inch deer. He was bumping those does around and just making a ton of noise. We filmed them for probably 10 minutes or so. And I kept telling Sarah, I was like, I think I hear footsteps to our left. And she was like, I don't hear them. And we kept watching that smaller buck and those does. And I heard it again, and I looked at her, and I was like, I think there's something to our left. And there hadn't been a deer go north to south any of the nights we had sat there. And right as I said that, I looked to my left. Sarah was like, I think I hear it too. And right as she said that, I looked to my left, and I was like, Sarah, there he is. He's at like 80 yards, kind of pushing north to south, or south to north, up towards those does and that smaller buck. And he was at 80 yards, just working straight across. I had to let him clear a tree. He kind of hit. He was standing in CRP. I asked her if she was on him, and she was like, no. And I was like, well, I've bombed on this deer twice. I don't care. And right as I pulled the trigger, she said, I'm on him. And I was like, well, cool, because I just tried to shoot him. And I don't know if, to be honest with you, I have a feeling that in the nervousness and how much of a train wreck I had with the gun over the course of that week, I'm not sure I ever cocked the gun. And I have a feeling that I pulled the trigger and the gun didn't go off, and I don't think it was the gun's fault that time. I have a feeling it was the dummy pulling the trigger that time.
Just a practice pull. That's all it was.
Yeah, just a practice pull. But of course, when it clicked, he heard it and he was like, "Oh man, there was something." And because I mean, he's been shot at twice out of the same spot now, so he was like, "That was the same noise I heard earlier." But he kind of looked up and shot up. I broke the gun open because I was like, oh no, it's happening again. And so I checked the primer. Primer was good. And he took like 3 more steps, kind of worked into a lane. And I popped the gun back in real quiet. And he was kind of looking. And I cocked the gun back together, pulled back the hammer. And I asked Sarah, I was like, are you still on him? And she's like, yeah, I'm on him. And he took like 2 steps. I bleated at him, and he stopped and kind of cocked off and looked at me, and I shot. And it was one of those things that I stayed in scope, made sure I made it count. And as soon as it hit, I mean, he reared up and mule kicked, and Sarah was like, you smoked him, because she was in the camera viewfinder. So she confirmed that we'd hit him, and he kind of ran down maybe 30 yards, got off the trail a little bit, and kind of did that rear up on his back too, and just kind of fell over backwards. And, I mean, it wasn't any of a track job. I mean, he went maybe 30 yards. Just it was one of those things, and that you dream of. We got one of our good friends was actually gracious enough. We'd been laying out on top of a hill in a cattle pasture for a couple nights. And, I had texted him and told him that we were parking in his driveway, and that we were not hunting on him, but we were parking in his driveway there because he lives 2.5 hours away. So if someone saw us, that we were sitting in our cattle pasture, and he was like, well, if you guys are sitting on the ground, he's like, I've got a stand up there in the fence row. He's like, you guys should just go sit in the stand. He's like, that'd be an awesome place. He's like, and then he's like, if you guys get him killed, I know that I'll get to see him. He's like, I don't care where he's at, just kill him. And so we actually killed him on the neighbor. He's a super awesome guy. He's let us hunt for years, but I try not to ask him because he hunts as well.
Right.
And I mean, he could not have been any nicer. He let us kill him. And he was actually down there the night that we killed him. He was sitting in a box blind maybe 200 yards away, and as soon as that shot went off, I mean, he was calling.
I think we're losing you here, Aaron. You must be going down a hill or something. If you can hear me. Raggy.
Wait, no.
There we go.
Hey, we lost you there for a little bit. All I got was your buddy was in the box blind about 200 yards away.
No, he was in the box blind, and he was calling like crazy. He's like, "Was that you?" And we're like, "Yeah, that was us." And he's like, "Did you get him?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's down probably 30 yards." And he's like, "Oh, I'm already climbing down the box blind." He's like, I'll be there in 2 or 3 minutes." So he rolled up. We got my brothers and my dad and a couple of our good friends. They all came out there, and we just kind of stood out in the CRP and processed him there, tracked him up, and it was one of those memories that you never forget. I mean, it felt like what I envisioned the early 2000s deer camp. Everyone standing around a deer, feeling like in the lights. I mean, you couldn't imagine a better scene. So we had a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome to experience all that, and not only have your neighbor there, to experience it with you, but to have that, I guess, relationship with your neighbors, that he would allow you that opportunity, to harvest that deer.
Well, yeah,
I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, you don't hear that every day.
And to get it on video.
I mean,
right.
Crazy. I called him. He actually called me that day. I knew he was coming down from northern Iowa. And he called me. He's like, "Where are you sitting tonight?" And I was like, "Well, are you coming down?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be down there tonight." And I was like, "Well, I figure we'll sit over on us." I was like, I'm not going to push you. You own the ground. I was like, "You've been gracious enough to let us hunt." I was like, "We should have had it done by now." And he's like, No. He's like, I want you to sit in there. He's like, "You keep sitting in that stand." He's like, "To be honest with you, I'd probably get cold anyways." He's like, I want you to be the one to sit in there." He's like, "I'm going to kill him out of the box blind." And he's like, I'm gonna make you youngsters sweat anyways. And it was one of those moments. I can't believe he'd ever let us sit in there. It's one of the nicest things he could have done for us. And I mean, as soon as we got him killed, I mean, you could not. There aren't many neighbors that would let you hunt their ground with him down there and him be the first person there. And I don't know that he wasn't more excited to put his hands on that deer than I was.
Right.
I mean, he was stoked. I mean, he was excited, screaming, yelling, fired up. I mean, it was truly, he's one of a kind neighbor. I mean, you couldn't have a better experience with a neighbor than him. So
yeah,
we were truly blessed.
You don't hear that every day, that happening. There's so much competition and jealousy, especially when it comes to a big deer and
a huge deer. It's not a big deer. He's a huge deer.
Yeah, you just don't hear things like that. I mean, that's awesome to hear that, there's still some great people in this world that, have a common interest with us and love to do the same things, and, don't let a deer like that, come between them.
Yeah, that's what it's about. I mean, and speaking of, I don't think we've touched on this yet. What did you tape him out?
Yep, we taped him. I am by no means a professional scorer. I bought and sold antler for a lot of years for some pretty big names in the business as far as trophy grade antler. So I like to think I'm pretty close with a tape. I like to give myself 1.5 inches on each side. We had him at 197. I figure he's going to be closer to that at 193, 194 by the time he actually tapes out. But other than the two kickers that he had, one down on his base on his right side and one on his G2 on his right side, he did not have a tine shorter than 8 inches.
Wow.
And I mean, those inches add up quick. It doesn't take long when you're racking off tines at over 8 inches, just as quick as you can count them. I figured when we went up to him, we were going to be high 80s max, and then we started taping him there. We taped him a few times, and that left side came up to like 91 inches, and I was like, oh man, well. I figured the right side would be substantially smaller than his left because he only has like an 8 3/8 inch G2, but that brow was longer. He had a couple mass measurements that were bigger, and then he had all those sticker points which evened it out. His left side ended up going 91 3/8, and his right side was like 88 5/8 with a 17 6/8 spread, I believe. came out to just over 197. Very rough score. I imagine he's going to be just a shade under 195 by the time we get him officialed out.
Right. Still, still to even give yourself a little room like that, and he's still that big. That's a big
Well,
deal.
I like I said, I by no means consider myself a professional, but I've taped enough good deer that I'm pretty accurate enough to get a close guesstimation for the guy that's coming and inevitably putting the actual tape on it. So
now, from the sounds of it, from talking to you, over the last couple of weeks that we've been talking, gonna have you come on here and do this episode with us. It sounds like your wife has killed a pile of really, really good deer too. So was she just feeling sorry for you and threw one your way here on this one? Or?
Yeah, are we talking to the wrong person?
Pretty much. My wife's the actual killer. I mean, they were all messing with me, telling me that it was asking me if I let Sarah shoot this one, or if Sarah actually shot it and she just let me take a picture with it, because they figured she was the real killer.
Right.
So I get to hear that all the time. She's been hunting with me. I think we'd been together for just over a year. She sat with me before that, but she killed her first deer. We'd been dating for about a year, and she was kind of eating up with it and called me. We were having a cattle sale that day. She had sat through the cattle sale, and we'd gotten done, and we were just kind of having our after-sale meeting. She was like, "Hey, you don't need me for anything, do you?" I was like, "No, why?" She's like, "Well, I'm going to go sit in the tree." And, I mean, she'd been in the tree for maybe an hour, and she called me, and she's like, "Aaron, I just killed a giant." And I was like, "How big are we talking?" She's like, "I don't know, but he's big." And so we went and pulled the camera, and she showed me what deer she killed and everything. And so we got right on the trail there, and we weren't like, it was the first deer she'd shot, so she told me where the hit was, but it was one of those things that you never want to push a deer that you're not for sure on. Came back the next morning, found him within 75 yards, and she had killed her first buck with a bow, and he'd piled up within, well, dang sure before 100 yards, and he was like 158 as a 10 with a kicker right off his base. Just an awesome first deer.
Nice.
And ever since then, she's been eating up with it. I mean, she's killed some dang nice deer. So
was she into hunting and stuff like that before you two got together?
Nope. Her dad and her grandpa did some shotgun drives, but she had never sat before we started dating, and then we sat. She sat with me a couple times the year that I killed my 187 Big 10 with a bunch of splits off his bases. She sat with me, and she saw him a couple times, and that kind of got it all started by the time. And just getting to spend time together. I mean, I spend a ton of time in a tree, and it's one of those things we like to set double sets and sit together. Not very often are we sitting apart. So we get to talk, and I mean, it's time together. Being that we both like to do it so much. We try and be each other's cameramen, and it all kind of works out. So I probably, since she didn't get to hunt much late season, I probably owe her quite a bit of camera time next year of me getting to be behind the camera and her getting to run point. So
that's awesome. Speaking of filming and stuff, is this something you guys just kind of just got into? Were you doing it before? Like, how did this all start up? Because not many people do it, let alone with their spouse.
We've done it for, I'm trying to think. I filmed a turkey hunt in 19, and then we killed both of our big deer that year on film. We did all the editing. I mean, it's nothing even remotely professional. It actually, at this point, it kind of frustrates me to go back and watch it. I probably need to just sit down and re-edit it all and get it to where I like it. But we've filmed for going on 3 or 4 years now. We've filmed. Well, I filmed a good turkey kill here this year, and it's just one of those things that when we're trying to kill the caliber of deer we see a lot more deer than we shoot in a day, and even a season. And at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to watch them with a camera too, and go back and show people. And that's as much fun as anything, to build that history through seeing them for a couple of years. That's a lot of fun. We get as much into filming as we do killing big deer. I mean, I had a guy ask me today, and I was like, trying to kill big whitetail is a year-round project. I was like, that ends up having a high point for about 10 seconds, but the whole process is what's fun of it. I was like, we enjoy the whole process, not just those 10 seconds of glory after you pull the trigger. I mean,
Exactly.
so like I said, we've been filming for a few years. We've gotten along very well. This year's film is substantially better. We switched cameras, went to 4K, and we will have substantially better quality this year. It just we decided to kind of step up our game in that aspect, and we've had a lot of fun with it since we've kind of taken that next step.
You got any more? I wrote those down. If you wanted to read off some of those, if you didn't have something else.
What do you guys prefer to hunt with? Do you guys prefer, I'm sure, bow like everybody else, primarily, but let's get your opinion on it.
As far as I know, my wife loves hunting with a bow. I mean, ideally, I'd rather sit with a bow. I love rut during bow season. I mean, early bow, you can't beat it. But when it gets down to these mature deer, come late season, it almost levels the playing field the second that muzzleloader comes out, because I can get a lot more aggressive as far as how we try and get close to these deer, and it just allows for a lot more as far as pushing in. We do a lot of wide open field hunting, just trying to get close to groups of deer, especially late season. Not so much during bow. We're hunting specific deer, specific trees, and a lot of times we're packing in camera gear, stands, the whole 9 yards when we're bow hunting. And it all just kind of adds a different element to it. Sarah loves the bow aspect of it. I'm not sure, she's killed one buck with a gun. Every other deer's been with a bow. I don't care. I just want to. I like the game of trying to get close to big deer and trying to find them. That's my pride is finding these big deer. I don't care what I end up killing them with. It doesn't matter to me.
Exactly. Not about to discriminate on pulling the old smoke pole out.
Nope.
Knocking one off if you got to do it.
No.
So I know you said that you and Sarah go together and do this a lot. So I don't know how relevant this question is, but how do you guys like balance like regular lives and being able to be out in the woods as much as you guys are?
Well, with Sarah having work, we try and hunt a lot of them weekends. She gets out of school, especially early season. She gets out of school, and I mean she's busting at home, so we can try and jump in, especially before that time change. We can get a lot of hours in there, kind of before it gets dark there early season. With my job, I show up an hour earlier so I can get done an hour.
Right.
I show up an hour early so I can get done an hour early and try and slide out and try and jump in a stand. There's some days it works. There's some days it doesn't. But we get very, very lucky that our jobs kind of allow for it. There's times that I know we spend way too much time in a tree and way too much time pushing, but I'm very blessed that she loves doing it as much as I do, and kind of allows me to continue to push throughout a long hunting season and keep after it, because we wouldn't get nearly as much done if she was pushing back. Like I know some people definitely aren't as lucky as I am and getting pushed back about me sitting in a stand 7 nights a week trying to kill deer. So I'm lucky that she has the same drive and the same passion to do what I want to do. So I'm truly blessed in that aspect.
And I'm sure your social media is blown up, because I mean, big deer like this catch big attention. And correct me if I'm wrong, you did a thing with Field and Stream, didn't you?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of attention from that, as far as that. And I know Trophy Bucks of Iowa ended up latching onto it somehow. They're a big advocate out here for deer and just posting. I mean, they kind of floated it. I mean, it's been absolutely nuts. I try not to watch the Field and Stream deal too much, because I mean, you get all the non-hunters on there and everything. So I try not to look back on it too much. I know someone told me the other day it was up over like 4,000 likes or something, but
nice.
I don't know. There a couple of years ago when I killed that big one, I killed him like October 3rd. So he was like the first big deer in Iowa to get killed. And the internet just went absolutely nuts. And I don't know. It's one of those things that it's a double-edged sword with us wanting to video and everything. You want to push for it, but at the same time, you don't want anyone to see them. And it just, you got to find that happy medium. And I'm not sure we found it yet, but here we are, I guess. There's a lot of people that kind of figured out about it. It's been pushed pretty hard. So, I guess we got a lot of attention on it. So, is what it is.
With all that being said, are you getting friends that you didn't know you had, like you're saying, getting pushed on and stuff, or people coming to you and kind of trying to figure out where you're at and all this other stuff to try to start getting a little closer to you at all, or no?
No, I think with the way Onyx is, the worst part about it is we run so much ground that everyone in the neighborhood, I mean, I walked into our feed store, they knew about the deer. I walked into our lumber yard, they knew about the deer. Everyone in the county knew where this deer was living. I just got lucky enough to have 2 farms that he was passing through late season on the way from food to bed. And I got lucky. Everyone knew where that deer was, and it's one of those things that there will probably not be a deer that big that ever uses that route again, to be honest. And I could be wrong. There's a good deer in there most years, but it's never a 197-inch 10 with giant split brows. I mean, it normally isn't a deer like that.
So since you're saying everybody knows about this deer and all this stuff, are you getting any slack from people that were like, man, it must be nice, I've been hunting this deer for X, Y, and Z? You got any good negative story for some people?
No, we are very blessed with some really good neighbors. I know there were some people that had been hunting him all year, and like they congratulated me and everything on it. And I mean, I know that it would frustrate me if I hunted one all year with a bow and then someone showed up with a muzzleloader a couple days into season and killed a giant deer that I'd been hunting all year. But that's part of it, and they were the first people to congratulate me, and they were awesome about it. The neighbors to the north that were hunting him, they actually heard the shot and saw all of my family and the landowners' vehicles out there on the edge of the road as we were kind of standing around the deer. And he called the landowner, and he's like, hey, do you know that there's someone in you that just killed a deer? And he was like, yeah. And he kind of told him what we had killed, and he's like, oh, well, we've been hunting that deer pretty hard. And he was like, yeah. And he's like, well, come over. The landowner looked at me, and I was like, have him come over. I was like, we don't care. I was like, if they've been hunting him, I was like, have him come over. They can take pictures, whatever they want to do. I was like, I'm not going to be that guy that's like, no one can see this deer. Right. No one can touch him. I was like, come over. I was like, I was probably in this instance the least qualified person to get to kill this deer. I was like, so if people want to come over, they want to put their hands on him, I was like, go for it. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm not gonna cause anyone issues where you guys were nice enough to let me come over.
Man, I like hearing that. That goes back with like what Levi was saying, to have good
But
neighbors and all this other stuff.
I think by the time we ended up leaving that night, I think there was like 15 people standing around him out there in the CRP, because where we ended up finding him was maybe 65 yards off the road. And so everyone that drove by saw the 5 vehicles that were sitting there between my brothers and my dad and the landowner and then the people that came from the north. And so everyone knew a deer had died that night, and everyone knew what deer was in that area. So, I mean, we were getting calls and just, did you finally get him killed? Did you get him killed? I mean, it was an awesome outpouring. Everyone was really supportive of it. I mean, we didn't have a negative story.
That's great.
We were truly blessed with our neighbors, and we like I said, we couldn't have been more lucky.
Yeah, that's great. So with all that being said, so where do you go from here? I mean, how high are we going? Are we looking for like a solid 200 now, or what?
I don't know. We just chase mature deer. We're obviously I'd like to break that 200 number at some point, but it may not ever happen. This year we just so happened to be hunting a couple giants, and then we're also hunting a 110-inch 5-point with a 6-inch drop tine off the backside of his off his main beam. I mean, we don't discriminate. We just try and kill mature deer. We don't care. We've had him on camera for a couple of years now, and have 4 sheds off of him, and my wife's become pretty partial to him. And like I said, we don't discriminate. We just try and kill mature deer.
Right. Whatever makes you happy, right? Especially for the wife.
Yep. She's fallen in love with that deer. She named him, and ever since we kind of found him, if we ever get the chance, I had him at 7 yards under the tree last year, and I told Sarah that I probably wouldn't kill the deer because she wants to kill him, and he came right under the tree. I was sitting by myself that night in the pouring rain, and he was at like 7 yards, and it took everything I had not to let the air out of him. But I told her, I was like, we're going to get you on that deer at some point. So he's been a big 6-point for, I want to say, 5 years now. So his time's coming. But
that's great. So I got some other questions we're just kind of going to go and ask. We're going to try to ask these more challenging questions to all the guests that we have kind of on the way out, because we're already running close to 45 minutes. So do you have any tips to keep warm and everything? I mean, I know you said it was a good balmy January when you went through and, laid the hammer down, but if it wasn't a good balmy 50 degrees outside, what do you got any tricks that you go through to try to keep warm out there?
Well, I say that, but the week before we were hunting negative 15 degrees with a negative 35 feels like. So I mean, we killed him in awesome weather, but we had been through it all at that point. So I don't. I mean, the worst part about it is we run all Sitka. Like I like to tell my wife, like a lot of these people like to wear 3-4 pairs of socks. The second you do that, you lose every ounce of breathability, and you're going to start sweating on the way there. And the second you start sweating, it's game over.
Yep, absolutely.
With all of our Sitka, I mean, it's an astronomical price up front, but with the amount of days that we spend in a stand a year, I depreciate the comfort value out, and it doesn't cost a lot per day for me to be sitting in gear that is crazy warm, layers extremely well. You have the movability with bow. I mean, when you depreciate out the cost of that over just over 90-day hunting season, and you can wear it your entire lifetime, I mean, that cost isn't crazy high. I figure if it costs me $2-3 a day, it's more than worth it every single time to be comfortable. That's the biggest thing you can do in life, especially even if you're working outside right now. I mean, it doesn't pay to go home and be miserable because you were outside all day. I mean, that's no fun for anyone.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know. Buy good clothes and buy once, cry once, I guess, because it'll pay off in the long run.
Buy once, cry once. I've never heard it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess my big question for you, Aaron, is what are your tips for scent control? I know I am probably, I don't know if it's as crazy as it gets on scent control, but I'm pretty
thorough. We'll just say thorough.
Yeah, thorough about it.
Very
That's a good
thorough.
word.
You just, at the end of the day, when you're hunting a big mature deer, you can't beat the wind. If the wind gives you away, it's going to give you away every single time. You're not going to beat his nose. And one thing that we have actually spent a ton of time learning about the last couple of years as we've gotten more serious about it, that I didn't realize. I don't even remember what I was watching, to be honest. But they started talking about thermals, and I was like, what in the world is thermals? And I couldn't figure out why on some nights in bottoms and stuff I was getting busted, and I was like, what in the world is going on?
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, I picked up on that maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, and ever since then I've just been enamored with thermals and learning about how that's getting us. And I mean, you can't beat the wind and you can't beat thermals, because at the end of the day, when that sun starts to go down, you're going to float right into that bottom, and every deer that's sitting in that bottom is going to get you if you don't have it lined up well.
It's an absolute game changer once you hit the nail on the head and get that all figured out. It's a light bulb just goes off, and you're like, why didn't I think of this years ago?
Exactly.
Exactly. I was like, I sat there one night and I was like, what in the world is going on as we were clearing the field again? And I was like, something is going on, because I have the perfect wind. I was like, and for some reason it's like they're pegging us down here. And I don't remember if it was Drury's or maybe Bill Winky or what it was. It may have been Midwest Whitetail, Bill talking about thermals. And I was like, holy cow, that is exactly what's happening in this bottom we're hunting. I was like, we're getting busted. I was like, as soon as that sun goes down, thermals are sucking right down into that bottom, and we're getting annihilated every night. And it was like a light bulb went off.
Yeah, I have quite a few sets that, especially in October, that I will not go into those bottom sets unless I have a pretty strong, steady wind in the right direction, because other than that, I mean, it kills you. It's,
right.
I mean, you might as well not even waste your time.
Yep. And with the same thing being said, in the evenings, if busting you, in the mornings, you can get some wild stuff going on, because you can hunt some winds that probably don't work for you in the mornings for the first couple hours, because those thermals are sucking up and they're going up over the hill and they're disappearing. As long as you're hunting big bottoms, you can get away with some stuff in the mornings because of thermals.
Yep.
It's something you got to pay attention to. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that we're going to be hunting a great bottom October 15th with the wrong wind because I'm banking on thermals, but I mean, we'll play thermals every once in a while of a morning, because we've got a deer that we're wanting to go after, and we're counting on thermals sucking our scent up over the top of the ridge, and we've gotten along well with that at times.
Mm-hmm. So, excuse me. So one of the last questions here is, if there's one piece of advice you can give to a new hunter, be it an older person, younger person, anything like that, what kind of piece of advice would you give to them, be it, as much as being awesome neighbors like you have, to, or something like make sure you get good gear? Just what would be that one thing that you would tell to a new hunter?
Well, to be honest with you, I was getting pretty down on myself there after kind of the whole deal, and I hit a good one early in the year and hit him high and never recovered. And we think he's still alive, and I got pretty frustrated with myself, and my wife kind of said it best. I believe it was Cody Robinson talked about when he killed the sleepy mule deer. He talked about you're at the end of the day, you're taking a life of a mature animal that's in his prime, in his own area, doing his thing. It's not supposed to be easy. Nothing about this is supposed to be easy. If you're not willing to work for it, it wasn't meant to be. And she kind of told me that there after the gun didn't go off that night. She's like, Aaron, it's gonna happen. She's like, you work hard enough, it's gonna happen. She's like, but it's not supposed to be easy. Like if you want to kill big mature deer, you can't get down on yourself. And that was as good of advice as I could have taken at that minute, because I was pretty down on myself at that point. So that was like I said, that was as good as it got at the moment.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that answer, because, especially as the season draws on, man, I find myself struggling with that a lot. It's like, oh, come on, just give me an easy one, but like you said, it's not supposed to be easy. And I think that's what keeps us driven and coming back.
And you figure out who your real friends are too, because they're the ones that's going to be there to be cheering you on, letting you know, like, hey, keep your chin up. It sucks, but been there. Keep going. Keep grinding.
Or if you got a good wife and she comforts you through it all.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I guess I should talk about the kid that he works for us, and he's kind of turned into one of my best friends. And I called him that night, and he was like, you're calling me pretty early. And I was like, yeah, I need you to bring me the photography camera. And he was like, no, you didn't. And I was like, oh, we did. And he's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. He's like, I'm getting dressed now. So, we're as lucky as we can be. We're blessed. We got nothing to complain about.
And I keep hearing you say that, and I'm glad that you at least realize that, because I think, I think there's a lot of people out there that go out and they just kind of arrogant about it. It's like, well, yeah, of course, I did this again, or I did this again. Because I think that's something too that I think people being humble, especially like in the outdoors, is kind of dwindling away a little bit.
Yep.
So.
And yeah, I knew we wanted to have you on as a guest, not only to tell the story of this incredible deer. A heck of a story it is. I know you kind of told me a little bit of it beforehand, but we didn't get into all the details on it. And I just want to say that was one hell of a story, and I knew you were somebody that we wanted to bring on. We have mutual friends that I actually hunt on here in Illinois. Great people, and from hearing all the stories from them about you guys and the deer you've killed, I knew it was somebody that we needed to connect with, and not only on that level, but to tell your story too. And I appreciate it, Aaron, and I really look forward to having you back on sometime here in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a lot of fun. So.
And then one final question. So the next time we do run into you, liquor or beer?
I don't know. It used to be liquor, but as of now, I've probably toned myself down, and it's probably best off to just have some Iowa water and stick with the Busch Light. So,
Awesome.
But
okay, well, I think we're gonna let this one go. I know you said you had a ball game to get going too, but unless Levi's got anything else.
Nope.
I think we're going to call her a wrap. So, Aaron, thank you again so much for showing up or coming on here. It was awesome. Great story. We appreciate you giving the time.
Well, it's good talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, once again, this is episode 3 of the Hunted Podcast, and we're going to sign off here, and we will catch you on the next one.